Well, good Monday morning to you. I'm Neil Gordon. Personal injury can include any type of injury, from a traffic accident to a fall to an injury caused by a medical mistake. And some of those injuries may occur due to criminal activity such as DUI or assault. In any case, if you've been injured, you need to know what your rights are under the law. If you have a question about any type of personal injury claim, and we're going to try to focus on serious accidents tonight, we invite you to give us a call. The number up on the screen, 803-442-4551. Well, here's coming up for the rest of October, some of our topics. Your Home and Property on October the 16th. On October 23rd, Elder Law and Estate Planning. And then on October the 30th, one of our favorites, You Can Ask Us Anything. And we'll be asking plenty of questions tonight of attorney Vic Hawk, who joins us each and every week from the Vic Hawk Law Firm. How are you tonight?
Doing great, Neil.
Good. Well, yeah. You were telling me, I guess, off air, you're working with some folks on some serious accidents yourself, involving, I guess, automobiles.
That's right. We are. We're going to tell you tonight about some some options you have in situations where there's been serious bodily injury or death. And we're going to be talking about those kind of cases from an entirely different perspective than you maybe thought about before. I brought on with me tonight a good friend, Ronnie Maxwell, who's been practicing for over 30 years. He's from Aiken. He's appeared before on this show. He's former president of South Carolina Trial Lawyers Association, and just a great, great trial lawyer. Ronnie, can you tell our viewers, in a situation where there's been serious bodily injury or death, in a single car accident, how could a family be protected under circumstances such as that?
Well, you know, as you say, Vic, the normal situation is you have a 2-car or a 3-car accident. There's another car to sue. But oftentimes in cases where there's a single car accident, there's indeed the chance for recovery. It may well be that the driver of that car has made a mistake or is negligent. Sometimes it could be that there's something defective about that car, and it would be a products liability case. Or it also could be a highway defect. If in fact a highway is defective in South Carolina, there are certain hoops you have to jump through, a little bit more than the normal case, but indeed our state highway department is responsible if in fact there are defects on the highway that cause someone to get injured or killed.
You mentioned defects. What about just defects on our vehicles in general? What type of things go bad?
Neil, you'd be absolutely shocked. When you have a situation where you have a serious bodily injury or death, a lot of times you have some unusual circumstances that surround it. Those unusual circumstances are maybe the person was ejected from the car, or for some reason the seatbelt didn't work, or for some reason the airbag didn't work. And what you would think would be a wreck that should not have caused a serious injury, should not have caused the death, was in fact caused by a defect in the car. We run into cases all the time. We have some in our office now involving exploding tires. There are tires on the road that are defective, and you can be going down the road 60 miles an hour and they'll explode on you and cause very serious injuries. I talked to Neil before the show. Firestone recall tires many years ago, and they were required to send out notice. Well, we found out they sent out notice regular mail, and there's still 50,000 to 250,000 cars still on the road with the same dangerous tires.
Well, serious injuries can also occur during slip and falls, and we understand our first caller had a situation like that. Lynn joins us from Aiken. Lynn, how are you this morning?
I'm doing good. How about y'all?
Super. About how long ago, if you could turn down your television set and kind of walk away from the TV if you can, how long ago, Lynn, did this occur, and where did it happen?
It was about 4 weeks ago, and I was in Columbia, and was going into a local grocery store there to pick up some mayonnaise, and there must have been some liquid or something on the floor, but as soon as I walked down the aisle, I fell, and I immediately reported it to the manager, and she did an incident report. Since that time, I've gotten a letter from the business saying that they would, they first called and wanted me to give them a statement of what had happened. So I told the lady what happened. And then the next thing I know, Friday I get a letter and they tell me that they determined that the grocery store was not at fault, did not cause my fall, but yet they would pay up to $5,000 for medical bills if any occur within the year. So I'm kind of at a loss of what to do now.
Okay, Lynn, hold on just for a moment, just in case Ronnie has any questions for you. What are your thoughts initially?
Well, Lynn, more than likely they're offering to pay under what's called medical payments coverage. Oftentimes businesses or homeowners have medical payments coverage that'll pay irrespective of liability. If in fact, however, you can prove liability, and in South Carolina you'd have to prove that they knew this substance was on the floor, someone else has told them, or they caused it to be there. So you may well have a good liability case, but luckily somewhat you know your bills will be paid up to the $5,000. You have 3 years in South Carolina to make a liability claim, and it would depend on the facts, but you may have that opportunity.
And the same is true as to the basic law involving slip and fall in Georgia, but you have 2 years in which to file your claim. And Lynn, what happened to you is something that we see a lot in slip and falls. The adjuster calls you soon after the event occurs, and then they look for anything that you might say, however innocent, that may absolve them of responsibility. And that's why it's a good idea before you talk to an adjuster following something like this, that you talk to a lawyer first so you'll know what they're doing in advance. And it's kind of neat whenever you talk to them over the phone and then later on lawyers involved, the first thing we say, well, we'll give a statement if you'll give us a copy of your statements. And they all say, no, we're not going to do that.
Well, we're joined now by Barbara on the telephone from Grovetown with a question, I guess, involving her automobile. Hello, Barbara.
Hi.
Hi, Barbara. What is your question this morning?
My question is, wait a minute, I'm hearing myself again. Let me turn my television down.
Yes, please. And same for all of our viewers. Please turn the TVs down if you
Got it
can.
down.
Okay. Are you okay now?
Okay, my question is, I had an accident, and my car was total loss, and I have full coverage on the car. And the insurance company is asking that I give them power of attorney to proceed in collecting for my damage. Now, am I supposed to do that?
Was it a car accident where just you were involved, or was somebody else at fault in causing the damage to your car?
Wait, now I lost you. I couldn't hear what you said.
Yes, ma'am. Was it a single car accident, or was there more than one car involved in the accident?
It was a single car accident.
Yes, ma'am. If it's a single car accident and you're making a collision claim, part of the processing in the payment of the claim is the transfer of the title. And if your car is total, they would require you to sign the necessary documentation to authorize them to transfer that title through the state of Georgia. So that would be it. There wouldn't be anything unusual about that.
Well, Barbara, thank you so much for calling. And again, if you'd like to call in, try to call from a landline if possible, and make sure you turn down your television set also. The telephone number to call on the other side of the break is 803-442-4551. You're watching News 12 Law Call.
When a lawyer cannot or will not go to court, the insurance companies love it. Settlements are then diluted or settled on a volume basis. Your claim is unique to you and your family. A trial lawyer will ensure that you receive what is necessary to take care of your medical bills, your lost wages, any permanent disfigurement, and future costs. So what should you look for when choosing a lawyer? Ask the lawyer if they're a member of the State or National Trial Lawyers Association, and if they attend them regularly. Each association teaches cutting-edge techniques and nuances of the law to protect you. Ask if they've tried a civil case in the last 2 years. A lawyer who tries cases regularly in the highest trial court is experienced in dealing with seriously injured accident victims. Ask what types of verdicts they have received. This will indicate the lawyer's ability in a trial setting. Ask what types of injury cases they regularly handled. Some are good in auto accidents, others in slip and falls, others in product liability. Sometimes lawyers handle several areas of injury law. With a trial lawyer, you and your family can be completely protected. Protected because the insurance company will be held accountable. I'm attorney Melissa Detchmendy of the Vic Hawk Law Firm. Back to you.
And we just happen to have two trial attorneys with us tonight, Vic Hawk from Augusta and Ronnie Maxwell from Aiken and North Augusta. We're talking about accidents and injuries, and we're joined on the telephone by Jane from Augusta. Jane, how did you sustain your injuries?
Well, I was assaulted by a neighbor on my property, and the authorities didn't hold her accountable for it, didn't arrest her or anything, and I was wondering, what could I do myself to hold her accountable for my injuries?
Jane, you have a very simple thing that you can do. If you were assaulted and the police didn't pursue it as a criminal action, you can file a claim in the magistrate's court if you didn't suffer significant medical bills or injuries, and you can pursue a claim in the higher courts if you did suffer a significant injury. I would expect that the person would claim that they were either not at fault or didn't mean to hurt you, and as a result, their homeowner's insurance would cover your injuries.
Well, Edward joins us now from Augusta and an accident involving a bus, apparently. Edward, how are you this morning? Edward?
Hello?
Yes, Edward, go right ahead. Explain what happened with a city bus.
Yes, sir. I was on the bus about 2 weeks, city bus of Augusta, about 2 weeks ago. But 2 months before then, I had been in the hospital after 2 heart attacks and a blood clot. Okay, my legs are wrapped up when I got on the bus because I have diabetes and I have trouble with circulation. I was on there and the bus driver let this fellow off the back of the bus. And then there's a little click when the door's locked. And I got up to get off the bus thinking that she would see me in back. And she just takes off. And the people yelled that I wanted to get off the bus. And that's when she slammed on brakes. And that's when I hit the floor. And I busted my lip. And I couldn't get up off the bus because I only have 35% of pumping capacity in my body.
Yes.
Because of my heart.
Edward.
And everything is just water weight.
Yes, sir.
And I couldn't get up off the floor, so they had to send 2 men down there from the city to get me up off the floor.
Edward, you would have
So they let me off the bus, and I just came home.
Yes, sir.
So
Edward,
what
you would
can
have
I do about that?
Yes, sir. Edward, you would have a claim against the city. When you have a situation like you're on a bus, a public bus, and you're paying a fee, they have an extra duty of care to you to make sure that you aren't injured during the course of that trip. And I would think you'd have a valid claim against the city. You'd have to give notice to the city and then allow the city to try to resolve it with you and then pursue it. Is it the same in South Carolina, Ronnie?
It would be, and if in fact it's a governmental vehicle, there would be the Tort Claims Act would apply, and there's some special, again, as I said earlier to a question, some special hoops you have to jump through, but you would indeed have a claim. And it's important to point out, Edward, based on what you've told us, that in South Carolina and in Georgia, persons who cause accidents take their victims as they find them. It may be that you were more susceptible to injury, but that's the tough luck of someone who causes injury by being negligent.
Jackie is calling us from Burke County tonight in Waynesboro, hurt on the job with a workman's comp injury. Jackie, about how long ago did this happen, and what happened?
It's about 3 years ago, and something hit me in the top of the head, and I'm still having significant problems from that. And what I'm wanting to know is if I am at my maximum medical improvement, and I do know a little bit about that. What am I entitled to? Do I just suffer with this injury for the rest of my life and just go to the doctor the rest of my life? Or what kind of rights do I have as an individual to do anything about my injury?
Jackie, that's a good question. We have a Workers' Compensation Act. You've already been receiving medical benefits. I can tell by how you're discussing it, and apparently the doctors have determined that you've reached maximum medical improvement. At that point, the doctor should assess any permanent partial disability, and you would be entitled to some additional compensation. I'd highly recommend that you get to a good trial lawyer handling workers' comp. We handle workers' comp as well. And get what you're entitled to from the carrier. Just because they say those magic words, maximum medical improvement, that doesn't cut off everything for you in Georgia. You would be, if you never close out your claim, your medical would always cover you for the rest of your life. Ronnie, is it the same in South Carolina?
Yeah, it's very similar. In addition to the medical bills in South Carolina and in Georgia, you're entitled to get paid weekly up until you reach that time you just mentioned, maximum medical improvement. Even then, if you have a permanent problem, if you have future medical care, all of those things are factored in. And let me mention one other thing, since we're talking about cases a little bit outside the box. If in fact some third party injured you, but you were at work, the perfect example, if you're driving for a company vehicle and hit by another vehicle, you may be able, in addition to your workers' comp, to get payment from a third party. It's just something to make sure you look into as a possible other avenue of recovery in a serious accident.
Well, before we head to the break, we want to take one more call from Augusta. Risa joins us on the telephone. Risa, what is your question for our attorneys? Risa? Ronnie, apparently Risa was in an auto accident, and an insurance company is doing what they're trying to do, which is not pay.
Sure.
Any options when that occurs?
Sure. You have your access to the courts. Vic's firm and mine try our best to settle cases without the necessity of litigation, but both our firms are willing to file suit if we need to, and it could be in a small claims court or magistrate's court in South Carolina. It could be in the bigger courts for the more serious injuries. But if in fact you believe someone else is at fault and they're not willing to pay, everyone has the right in our country to file suit and have a trial by jury.
And you have to remember that these claims are handled on a contingent fee basis. If we are unable to help you, then you're not going to have to pay the lawyer to put out the effort to make sure that you're fairly compensated. And we don't do this to fail. We do this to win and be successful for our viewers and our clients.
And there's no charge for the calls either, especially since you're staying up till 12:30 in the morning. I'll give you the phone number one more time, 803-442-4551. All about injuries tonight. Stick around, more Law Call after this. And we want to get right back to the telephones, and Christy joins us on the telephone. Good morning to you, Christy.
Yes.
Hi, Christy. Tell us a little bit what your situation was when you got into a car accident.
Can you say that again? Because I can't really hear you.
Sure. Christy, just tell us what the situation was when you got into a car accident.
I was pregnant with my daughter, and it was 2 weeks before I had her. And I was to pick my husband up from work, and we were going home, and the boy behind us had a slight light. So I decided to turn left off the road, and he crossed over the double yellow line and hit me in my front end. It caused because I was pregnant, it caused my contractions to start up, and I had to be carried to the hospital. When I was at the hospital, my fiance came up there, and he told me that the officers did not cite the boy because they're conflicting stories. Because the boy's side pulled off to the right side of the road, when my vehicle was all the way on the left side of the road. It's only a two-lane road. And now I'm having issues with the insurance company about liability. Bodily injury, because I had lived around for 2 weeks and had x-rays and have been on steroids and ibuprofen and all kinds of other medicine.
Mm-hmm. Christy, It's not unusual in an accident case that they don't issue a traffic citation. If the police officer doesn't believe that there's been a serious injury, and many times they're mistaken, they don't believe that there's been a serious injury, they just don't write out the citation. But when they fill out the accident report, there is a little box in the middle of all the information for contributing factors. And it's there that they'll make a mark to indicate who was at fault in the wreck. And if you consult a trial attorney concerning your injuries and concerning the circumstances of the wreck, I wouldn't be as concerned about the issuance of a citation. Ronnie, do you see that in South Carolina as well?
I see it often that, in fact, if there's not drinking, if in fact there's not excessively high speed, if it's just a regular run-of-the-mill accidents, oftentimes there's an accident, and as you say, Vic, the officer notes who is at fault or who has contributed without giving a ticket. I think they realize that person's insurance will probably go up, and they'll pay for the damages and so forth. But if in fact you can prove that this other driver came across the center line and struck you, you can make a claim whether or not the officer has made a charge.
Well, we also want to chat with Helen tonight from Waynesboro. Helen, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. Tell us about a boating accident you'd gotten into.
Well, I was invited with some friends to go to a place, and they had a boat, and I went with them to the place, and they had children on it. They had a tube, what they call tubing, and they were pulling the kids around, and I thought it was a good, the time. They were going slow, but then they swapped out and put the adults on, the two of us adults, and they ended up taking off with the boat. Well, the inner tube went up in the air, and when it come down, it broke my leg. It snapped it. Well, they cut the rope on the tube. They first got the other girl off, cut the rope on the tube, and shoved me to the beach area where I was.
Okay.
And,
if you could just hold right there. What are Helen's options real quickly?
Helen, your options are to file a claim against the driver of the boat, who should be a permitted driver or the owner of the boat, and there would be liability insurance available to cover your injuries. You're going to have some issues whether you assume the risk, but you have to look at the individual circumstances of the case. And if you're injured in circumstances where they're acting crazy or doing something really dangerous, then you can definitely be compensated.
One last caller, Norman from South Carolina. Norman, go right ahead.
Yeah, this is for Ronnie. Ronnie, what I'd like to ask you, I had a good friend of mine, his wife pulled out in front of an automobile a few months ago, and she got killed. She's about 67 years old. They've been married about 50 years. And I wanted to know what kind of maybe help that she could get, or he could get, because the insurance company said that he wouldn't be titled anything because she contributed to the wreck.
Well, regrettably, Norman, if in fact she did cause the accident, her husband most probably could not recover. That would be, in South Carolina, we have comparative negligence. If she was more than 50% at fault for that accident, regrettably, probably through automobile insurance, he would not be entitled to recover something. Perhaps life insurance or some other accidental insurance, but not for automobile liability insurance under those facts, Norman.
And that might give rise to a product claim.
Could be. If something was wrong with her car, perhaps.
Okay, well, the music tells us we're about out of time. We so thank you for calling and for watching this time of day. And thank you, Vic, and also Ronnie. Have a great work week ahead.
Thank you all for calling.